I'm tired of having to work harder to bypass mediocre men.
They went with a guy who had less experience than me.
Women make up 50% of the population. Why is it that we're only about 5% of the below the line workers?
They said our names wouldn't make the slate, so we're calling our own shots. Slated Women Filmmakers. Real opportunities, real sisterhood.
Welcome to Slated Women Filmmakers. I'm your host, Allie Mae, and this is our producer, Pamela Torrance, and we're here to talk about the real pathways women use to break in, stay in, and get paid in the film industry. Today's guest is screenwriter Tracee Bebee. Tracee is an award-winning screenwriter whose screenplays have won awards at a number of prominent festivals and screenwriting competitions. She specializes in writing horror with a heart, character-driven genre fare with an underlining message. Her stories focus on badass yet realistic women pushing themselves past their limits to survive impossible situations, like we do in real life. Tracee's feature script Apex, formerly known as Deep Water, was selected on the 2019 Blood List. She has Ryuhei Kitamura attached to direct and sold to VMI to shoot in 2026. She was hired by Epic Pictures to adapt the video game The Mortuary Assistant into a feature, which was released to theaters in early 2026. In development now, she has her jungle thriller spec Blood Moon, which is currently being packaged by producer John Funk, while her action spec Pulse was named to the 2023 Grey List and has Dark Matter Productions producing it. Welcome, Tracee.
Thank you so much. That was quite the introduction.
Did I get everything right?
I think so. Close enough anyway.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you. Let me just jump right in, okay? So tell us about your 3 biggest career wins so far.
I think you covered them in my introduction, but definitely currently it's The Mortuary Assistant, which got an international theatrical release, which was really exciting. And now it's currently streaming on several platforms, but it's sitting at top 5 ever of the new releases for Shudder, and it's their top 10 of their releases of streaming of all time. So it's doing really well. That was an adaptation of a video game that I was hired to write. So that's pretty exciting. That was my first big sitting in the packed theater, listening to everybody gasping and moaning and hiding their eyes and stuff was really cool. I'd say that's definitely top 1 right now. And then selling Apex, formerly known as Apex. We're still working on a new name for that one. My shark script, which is going to be shot here pretty soon, which is really exciting. And an odd one maybe, or just slightly less dramatic, would simply be being able to build a screenwriting career as a woman of a certain age, not living in Hollywood.
You live in rural Texas, right?
Rural Texas, yeah. And actually, when I started, I was living in a tiny Northern California town. So never have lived in Hollywood. When I started, had 0 contacts and have just built my career and my network piece by piece, brick by brick.
That is one of the most interesting things about talking to you, I think, is that you weren't from Hollywood. You didn't know anyone. Tell us a little bit about how you laid those bricks.
First of all, I had been a horse trainer my whole life. That was like my dream. That was my whole identity. And then chronic illness kind of took that away from me. And I had to find something else that meant something to me. And then also gave me a way to connect with people because chronic illness is extremely isolating. I was bedridden, wheelchair bound, all this. And came this day was like, I had to get busy living or get busy dying. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go take this little creative writing class that my local college was putting on. It was close enough I could get a ride there if I needed to, since I couldn't drive at the time. And I wrote a story about a horse trainer who was dying. Write what you know, right? It was a feedback class, right? And so the class was like, wow, that was really emotional and it really touched me and it should be a movie. And so that did 2 things for me. One, it gave me a chance to connect with other people in a way that I hadn't for a while. And then it gave me the idea of, hey, screenwriting sounds like a really cool thing. And so I just Googled how to write a screenplay and spent a few months teaching myself how to write. And then just, again, like little by little kind of clawed my way up. And one of the things that I did, I think, really well was just connect with anybody and everybody through social media. This is in the earlier days of social media when it was a little bit less noisy. And Allie, I met you through that way. We connected that way. And I've made some of my closest friends have been that way. And actually my very first hired project was because of someone I met on social media who knew I wrote horse stories, because at the time that's what I wrote, because that's what I knew. And she had been offered a job to write a girl and pony stories. That's just not me, but I know who could write that for you. And so I always say it's really about making authentic connections. I think one mistake that a lot of people make is that they're always looking to get something out of a relationship when they're networking. But for me, it's always just been about making authentic connections. That's why I write. That's why I interact with other filmmakers and writers, all of that. And then the thing that kind of launched, like literally every single one of those things that I mentioned when you said, what are your top 3 wins, was because when they were doing live pitch fests in Hollywood, honestly, I was too sick to even get down there by myself. Luckily, my mom was like, okay, let's go for it. And she drove me down there, and I was 43 or 44 at the time. And so they had live pitch fest, which for those of you who don't know is basically like speed dating for screenwriters. So you get 5 minutes to sit down in front of a couple of executives and you pitch. And something about learning to read body language as a horse trainer and being able to communicate what I needed from my writers, not writers, but writers, horseback riders that I taught, gave me the ability to gauge really well what the person across the table was feeling when I was pitching. And so if they weren't biting, I could pivot really quickly. And so it was a superpower that I didn't know I had. And so I got something like a 95% read request rate. I had dozens upon dozens of, yeah, send that to me, which was really cool, which is a great way to be like, hey, maybe there's something to this whole screenwriting dream of mine. And I happened to pitch this sweet little family drama to an executive assistant, and she liked it enough to give it a read, and she passed it up to the development exec at her company, and that was Joe Russo, and he loved it enough that he went to bat for it. And it was just a lovely little family drama, which is almost impossible to get off of the ground, at least back then, especially with a brand new writer. They gave it their best shot, but Joe eventually left that company, and we stayed in contact, and he became a mentor for me. And I think all of the powers that be that I happened to sit in front of that particular assistant who happened to be with that particular development exec, because he just really has helped me with my career. And we became friends. He's a dog lover, so that helped, because so am I. And a couple years go by, and my horse and girl stories aren't getting off the ground, and my family dramas aren't getting off the ground. And I said to Joe, hey, what do you think I should write next? Because clearly this isn't getting me where I need to go. And he said, take what you know about writing characters, because you're really good at that, and write something scary. And I had never thought of doing that, because I'm like rainbows and unicorns and flowers and happy and love. But I do love horror, and Jaws is absolutely my most favorite movie of all time. And so when he said that, something kind of clicked for me. And so I was like, well, what's the most scary thing to me? Of course, Jaws, because I watched Jaws when I was way too young, and it stuck with me my whole life. And I know that every time I get in the water, I might not make it out alive. So I wrote a scary shark movie, and it went on to get on the blood list. And then I sent it to Joe, just, hey, what do you think of this? And he immediately attached to it as a producer. He said, this is phenomenal. And he said, here's what we're going to do. We need to get you repped so that when we start taking this out to shop, you've got some clout behind you. And so that's how I got my manager. He set up some meetings for me. And then even the other projects that I mentioned, the mortuary assistant came from a relationship that I made through Joe, and they had happened to read the shark script as well. So they knew that I could handle that kind of topic. Anyway, it really just comes down to never, ever, ever saying I'm too old for this, or I can't do this, or I don't know anybody. It just came down to keep writing, keep learning, and make those authentic connections. And so that's my long, but I think really cool. I just love how all of the pieces can get traced back to that one script and that one relationship.
I love the pieces, and I didn't know about your health crisis. I knew that you had some health issues, but I didn't know that it was the health crisis that it was. And I love finding something new through that. That's how I found directing, was that I had a stroke and I couldn't write anymore. So I went to film school and learned how to direct. And now that's all I care about is directing. But I love that you did what women do. You rose from the ashes. That's what we do. And it gave you this whole journey in your life that you probably wouldn't have had without that hardship. And so yay for you. Pulling yourself up, it really is inspiring. And I'm glad you shared that part of it, because like I said, I didn't know about it before. And I think that it's really important for our audience to hear stories about how we face stuff, and it's scary and it's sad and it's hard. But because we are women, we are born of blood, we have the ability to rise like phoenixes. And I'm so happy that you did. I remember going to those pitch fests. Those were fun. I
They
loved
were
them. I
fun.
wish they
I know,
still had
I miss
those.
them. Yeah, yes, they were so fun.
I met so many of the people that I know still through other people. They were nerve-wracking. So it did make me think of a question. I find pitching to be one of the most nerve-wracking and most difficult parts of being a writer, the idea of having a pitch. Can you give us some tips on pitching? Give us your best pitching advice.
I'm actually writing a book about that because I love pitching. And I think that it doesn't matter how good a writer you are, if you can't get someone excited about your story and want to read it by pitching them, it's never going to get made. And so many writers, and again, I think you're right, it's women, really struggle with that side of it because one, writing is extremely intimate. We are bearing our soul on the page through our characters and our storylines, and it's very solitary. We become writers because we like sitting in a room by ourselves with the characters in our heads, not because we want to go hang out with other people and tell them all of the reasons why my script is amazing. So it's really, I get it, it's tough. But I will say one of the most important things is let go of attachment to the outcome. You're not going in to sell this script. You're going in to make a connection. It's about the connection. And that comes down to being yourself. Please don't practice your pitch over and over again. Know your story like you know your best friend. If I asked you to tell me about your best friend, about what they like and who they are and why you love them, I bet you could do that. No problem. Right? That's how I want you to pitch your story. And if you're going in to pitch on their project, that's a little different than pitching your spec, but it still comes down to making that connection and making that relationship. The other thing is get good at, and this again speaks more to the general meeting as well as the pitching of a spec, as opposed to if you're pitching on their project, you've probably been at it a little while. So this, I'm going to stick to that for now. When you're going into these pitch meetings or these general meetings, ask as many questions as you answer because it's conversation. They're going to remember how you made them feel way more than what you said or what you talked about, right? You think you're going in pitching your script, but you're actually pitching yourself. And that can be really scary. So I don't want you to get in your head about that, but I want you to understand that, again, you're there to connect with another human. And so try to see them as a person who wants you there and who wants to get to know you. We think we have to convince them, but you're already in the room. You've already done the hard part. They need you and want you as much as you want them. And I know it doesn't feel like that. Like they're the big shots sitting behind the big desk who holds your life in their hand. But one of the things that I've loved so much about the way things have shifted since the pandemic is that almost all the meetings happen on Zoom. And so the Zoom meetings are happening in their bedroom with their laundry piled up on the bed behind them or their cat frolicking across their shoulders. And it's, oh, they're just people too. They love making stories. They love making movies. I bet we can talk and have a great conversation. And then the last thing, and this one's super practical. This one has helped me so many times, and especially because it helps me get outside of my is connect. Find something common ground to connect with on them. Like with you, Pam, that painting behind you with the Earth Mama green, I absolutely love that. And I bet we could talk about some really cool shit. But if I'm not going to mention that poster, if it doesn't actually resonate with me, I'm not going to be like, hey, Allie, love the black stripe
Fireplace
thing
behind me.
Like, what is that, right? If you take nothing away from what I've just told you or any of the other things I'm going to say today, it is be authentic, make authentic connections. Okay, that's my little soapbox.
Okay, so make authentic connections. How do you recommend doing that? How do you recommend seeking out people to connect with?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, we are so lucky to be living in an age where everything is online. So join your local filmmaking Facebook groups to start with, and then just branch out from there. I belong to, I don't know, dozens probably Facebook groups for screenwriters, filmmakers, actors, directors, and that sort of thing. But here's the thing, you can't just join them. Like you need to interact with them. I don't spend much time doing that anymore because I've already built that layer, but find people that are talking about the things that excite you. If someone says, hey, a lot of times they're posting because they were asking for money, but you can still be like, holy crap, you're at this stage. Good job. Congratulations. This sounds like a great story. I would watch that movie. Half the time, if I'm going to comment on something, that's about all I say is that's a movie I would watch. And you have no idea how much that means to that person. Now you run into them again, or you post about something, or you post and say, hey, I've got my crowdfunding going. Now that person remembers your name, but they more than that, they remember how you made them feel, right? You made them feel seen and important for just that little brief second. Chances are way better than this person who didn't do that they may participate in your crowdfunding or whatever, right? So again, we are so lucky to have these groups, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, or there's also now on School with a K, SKOOL. There's tons of groups on there. Reddit. I actually have a really fun story. Probably 10 years ago now, I read probably my favorite script. I read it at least once a year. It really changed my writing because it showed me that you can break the rules in a way that matters, right? You're breaking the rules on purpose instead of on accident. And you're doing it in a way that informs the script or informs the reader or whatever. Loved it. Just like became obsessed with this script. And the screenwriter for that script also happened to write Arrival. And when Arrival was making a big deal, he was doing an AMA, Ask Me Anything, on Reddit. And I like, cool, slide into that. And he's talking about Arrival, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, but what about Bird Box? When is Bird Box going to get made? Because that's an awesome story. And he jumped on and he's, thank you for saying that. I've been working so hard to get that movie off the ground. It's one of my favorite stories too, blah, 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 blah. Connection, right? Now, fast forward, I don't know how long, maybe at least a year probably. We're now chatting on Twitter and he remembers me as the crazy Bird Box fan. And I find out that he's actually coming to the Austin Film Festival as a presenter to talk about Arrival. And since then, now Bird Box has come out and it's done well. And we've been chatting about it. Only publicly on social media, right? I don't have his phone number or anything, but he's coming to Austin Film Festival. And I reach out on, at the time it was Twitter, and I say, hey, saw that you're coming to Austin Film Festival, would love to buy you a cup of coffee. And because I had laid the groundwork to this connection, he's absolutely. And so I'm there sitting in the front row, fangirling out, not because of anything, but because I loved that script and how much it informed my own writing. Anyway, we ended up having coffee, and now anytime, like, we have gotten together anytime I'm in LA, he's actually coming to Austin again, we're getting together again. And I didn't even bring up my own writing for probably 5 years. And then when the Shark script was starting to get some traction and stuff, I mentioned to my manager, hey, I've got this connection. We actually have a friendship. Maybe pitch it to him. He's got a production company starting. Now, that didn't lead anywhere. And the only reason I even pointed out is because I didn't immediately ask for something. I just helped him feel seen. And I always, every year on the anniversary of that AMA, I write him back and say, thanks for writing Bird Box. And he still loves it. It means something. When actually, when I was applying to a fellowship, I think it was Universal, you need letters of recommendation. And so I was able to go to this Oscar-winning screenwriter and ask for a letter of recommendation, which he gladly did for me, which felt amazing. I have it framed on my wall, by the way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But see, that's a connection. I took that. I didn't let myself be too nervous to say, hey, what about Bird Box? Or, hey, do you want to get some coffee when you're in town? I could have just stayed in my little bubble and wrote my little screenplays and did my own little thing. And you see, it's a long game. That's the other thing I think is important for everybody to understand. It is that's a 10-year process that relationship took, right? So, okay. So social media, you're asking, let's go back to the original question. How to make those authentic connections. Social media is definitely your friend if you use it right and you use it well. The other thing is, and this, I don't understand why so few people take advantage of this, especially as writers. I'm willing to bet that there is at least one, if probably not 10 film festivals within an hour drive of you. You don't have to fly to Cannes. You don't have to fly to Sundance. You can go to the film festival that's 20 minutes from your house. Although you should, if you're a screenwriter, go to the Austin Film Festival, even if you don't live in Texas, because that is an amazing way to network with really passionate writers. But when you go to a film festival, don't just buy a ticket and then sit there and watch their movie or stand outside and hope someone bumps into you. Channel me if you have to. Channel someone who is outgoing and brave and can talk to people. If you can't, if that is not who you are, but I can't do that, I would never do that, I'm not going to talk to strangers, I can't, I'm too scared, then pretend you are. Pretend you are. That's what it takes. And when you go and you watch the films, don't go to the one that's Oscar nominated or the big blockbuster film that's the highlight of the film festival. Go to the one that was made by the guy who lives down the street from you, because that's the guy who's going to be making another movie pretty soon and looking for a script. Make those connections, make those relationships. Oh, and here's another one. Make a short film, even if it's 5 minutes long, because that'll get you connected to your local film community, which will then lead to many other things. And then when you go to a film festival, you've got your kind of your badge of honor, which you're going to have to stand up and talk about it. So you might as well get comfortable doing it or pretend you are. Again, I made a 5-minute short film called Dog Years. It got into a bunch of local film festivals as well as some bigger film festivals. It didn't cost me an arm and a leg. I was able to get it funded and I was able to get some local business sponsorships and get that movie made. But it packed a really powerful emotional impact. And that's why people still talk about it. I got approached by someone just the other day if I would speak to their screenwriting class about that as an example of a short film. It was 4.5 minutes long, but it packed enough emotion into this story that it mattered enough to be able to get into these film festivals and have these conversations. One of the film festivals that I went to with that was a small local-ish film festival that led to at least 5 other projects that I got hired to work on because of the relationships that I made through that film festival. So that's a really good one.
That's a really great example of how you leverage those short films for sure. I love what you said about connecting with the writer for Arrival and Bird Box, because what you were saying was that you had an authentic love for his work, for the writing, and that's what your passion was. It wasn't about the relationship. It wasn't about impressing him. It was about expressing true gratitude for what he had given the world, right?
Absolutely.
And he saw that. That's what he connected to. He connected to the passion that you had for his writings. I love that idea of just connecting with whomever you feel the genuine connection for, regardless of how the relationship is going to pan out.
Again, you can't go into those situations wanting something from someone. What's interesting about that particular connection with Eric Heiser for that Bird Box, I was so excited to pursue that connection. And a couple of screenwriting friends of mine are like, why? He's just a writer. Like, why do you care? What are you going to get out of it? And one, he wrote a script that I absolutely love. And at the time I didn't think about it, but of course he's going to go on to do other things. He ended up starting his own production company. He ended up blah, 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 right? So you don't know, just because someone is a small town director at your local film festival who directed a 20-minute short film doesn't mean they're not going to go on to be head of Lionsgate. You just don't know where people's trajectory is. So if they resonate with you and you love their project, you love their film, you love their style, you love whatever, the painting on their wall, yes, that's the point. Make that connection. Even if it goes nowhere, you've practiced, you've gotten better at connecting, and you've improved someone else's life because you made them feel good about their stuff, which then only feels good for yourself. It's just a win-win. You've literally got nothing to lose, even if it's the scariest thing you've ever done. Even if sending that tweet or posting on that thing is terrifying to you, I want you to sit for just a second and say, what do I really have to lose here if I do this? Far more if you don't, because you could literally lose a connection with an Oscar-nominated blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's it right there. That's the truth.
You talk about taking those scary risks. What's a scary creative risk that's changed how you see yourself as an artist or a professional?
Gosh, I think it was writing that shark script. To me, that was like, I don't write horror. I write sweet little family dramas or horse and girl stories. I don't know how to write scary things, but I don't know. It's been a while now, but I know once I figured out that, I'm going to write this shark script, it felt so right. It was like slipping into a comfy pair of slippers. It was like, oh, this is where I was going all along.
Ah.
So I would assume it was scary at the time because, again, I don't know how to write horror, but I don't remember. I just remember it being a really exciting experience.
Was that your first horror film?
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
First horror script ever.
You had a horror film. I forget the name of it, but I thought that would have been your first horror. It was a horror short.
Date from Hell.
Date from Hell. Yeah, yeah. That was not your first horror?
So the shark script hasn't been produced yet. Date from Hell was my first horror that got produced.
So the shark script, formerly known as Deep Water, was your first venture writing horror. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep. And it got sold and getting made here very soon.
Well, that's fantastic. But I do
Amazing.
have questions specifically about that. So I guess it got sold and your other scripts didn't. So I get where you might just say, I'm doing horror from now on. But I guess that's my question. I think you did identify as a horror genre screenwriter. Do you feel like you're now in that box?
Yeah, and I'm really happy here. Box, but it's a very clearly defined box that feels very right for me. I've written a dozen horror scripts since then, and it's not because they that got sold and Mortuary got picked up and all that kind of stuff. It's I can take all of exactly what Joe said to do. I take all of that stuff that I love about characters and relationships and how we screw each other up and screw each other over all the time and bring in a monster or put the allegories around it. Like the mortuary assistant on the surface, it's this creepy demon stuff stuck in a mortuary. But what it's really about is our struggle with addiction, the way that affects not just our own selves, but our relationships and our entire world. And even when we don't want that, it still follows us home. The thing that I love about horror, the horror that I love, there are horror that does, slasher films tend to not necessarily fit in this, but the horror that I write and the horror that I love, you can take the monster out of it and there's still a story there. There's still meaning and art and love and pain and all of the human condition stuff. So yes, I'm very happy in this little box of mine.
Okay, awesome.
You're in that box now and you're content there, and it could change.
And actually, the scripts that I have that are doing really, that's with a producer now and that's trying to get packaged, is actually an action film that has no monsters whatsoever. But it was a really fun one to write too. If an action script or an action idea or an action project comes, I'm not going to necessarily turn it down if it can resonate with me. I don't necessarily see myself ever writing another happy family drama, but again, you just never know. One of the things I know writers and filmmakers in general really push back on the don't pigeonhole me, don't put me in a box kind of thing. I write everything. I can write anything. I love genres. That's great, but a manager is never going to be able to pitch you. That's your label. Your producer that becomes your mentor is never going to be able to get you meetings if that's your label. However, if they can go in and say, I've got a screenwriter who specializes in horror with heart, you need to meet her, you need to read her, they're like, oh, I get that, right? One of the things that I encourage the writers that I work with to do is come up with their own personal tagline. Mine is, I write horror with heart, and get comfortable saying it, right? Get comfortable pitching that, your own little personal elevator pitch. Hi, I'm Tracee Bebee, and I write horror with heart, elevated genre stuff with characters that I care about. Something along those lines, right? You can spit it out super quickly and easily. But the thing is, it's easy for someone to remember. It's a hook. It's your own personal little calling card. That's short enough. I can put it in my bio on Instagram, right? And when you start going to the festivals, that's how you can introduce yourself. But you've got to get comfortable saying it and make sure that it really does represent you. And that when you say it, it sounds like you.
Yeah. I took one of the classes through Roadmap and they focused on that. And I definitely came up with my tagline, but I'm not able to say it. I don't practice it enough. And I think that's the one thing. How did you learn to get comfortable saying it like you just did? How did you get comfortable having it roll off the tip of your tongue?
For the most part, it's just time in the saddle, to use a horse trainer analogy. The more you say it, the more easier it gets. The homework that I give the writers that I work with is start with your cat and just say it every time you feed your cat. Hey, Boots, I'm Tracee Beebe, because then it just becomes a thing that you say. But before you start practicing it, make sure it's tight. Make sure it's right. Get it dialed in, because that isn't immediately happen. The first thing that you might write down as your tagline might not necessarily be the smoothest, the clearest. You don't have to fit all the things in. You don't have to be like, and I also, and this, and also this, but also this, and I'm from Texas. Again, it's the elevator pitch, just the way you would write that for your script, have that for yourself. So start with the cat. It's really important that you start doing it where it's uncomfortable, but low stakes. So like the grocery store. And you can do it in this way. This, to me, this is the easiest way in. Hey, I need to practice saying something. Can I say it to you? They're like, okay, that's weird, but okay. What you're practicing isn't saying the words, you're practicing being uncomfortable. So when you can say it to a stranger in the grocery store or the dentist office or whatever, then you're getting used to being uncomfortable, and that gets easier. And then put it in your tagline on your social media, on your little bio there, because then it becomes real. And then you're seeing it every time you go on social media, right? It's just right there in your face. And then just start saying it, even though it hurts, even though it feels like getting your teeth pulled, start saying it. When you talk to someone on social media, when you go to a film festival, in some ways it's almost easier at a film festival type situation or a conference type situation, because that's what everybody's there for, right? But the point is, it's time in the saddle. It's not going to get easier until you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I know you're right. I know that we all know you're right, but it's hard to do. Tracee, you've told us a lot about your work ethic, and it's very impressive. And I know from knowing you that your work ethic is very impressive. When I was staying at your house during the Austin Film Festival, you had a house full of people who were clamoring to get ready to leave for the festival, and you were sitting there because you had to get your pages in.
I think I was actually working on the shark script.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Maybe. And you had a certain number of pages that you had to get a day. Do you still do that every day?
It's a little different. For the first, I would say 10 years of my screenwriting career, I did not miss a day. When I first started writing, my dad, I lived upstairs and he lived downstairs, and he'd yell upstairs, "Hey, Trace, did you write today?" And I'd say, "Yeah, Dad." And he'd say, "Good, because writers write." And for me, I never wanted to say, "No, I got too busy," or "No, I wasn't feeling good," or whatever. So it helped me get really habitual about it. And it really was important to me to prove to myself and everyone else around me that this is a freaking priority. This matters. So whether it's a sentence or 10 pages or a scene, I am going to write every single day. On Christmas, when I have a cold, when I'm flying to Mexico, whatever, I write. Now, I would say in the last 2 or 3 years, I've softened on that a little bit for myself, because I don't have to prove that part of it anymore. I don't have to commit to that, because I know that when I have a deadline, I'm going to show up. I've already proved to myself that I finish what I start and that I'm going to show up and get it done, right? And so now I know that there's more of an ebb and flow to my creativity, and I honor that and respect that. I don't think that would be the right choice had I not already established that hardcore, no excuses right anyway, right? That's the thing. And I think part of that is, when we're first starting out, the first 10 years, our psyche is looking for any excuse not to finish it, because finishing it is scary as hell. Finishing it means, now what? Or maybe I don't even know what comes next. I'm not going to be able to finish that, right? All of those things. And so now that I know that I'm not procrastinating when I take a step back, I'm breathing, I'm recovering, I'm ruminating, because I've trained myself. I've proven to myself. It's not about proving it to anybody else. It's about proving to myself that I am going to show up when it's time, when I need to. I would not recommend that to someone with at least 5 years. In the first 5 years, I want you writing every freaking day. I don't care if it's a sentence, but you are going to write every single day until you identify in the deepest part of yourself as a screenwriter.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I used to write every single day too, and then I couldn't write anymore. And then since it's much more difficult for me to write because my brain doesn't work the same way that it used to. And so it's something I tend to put off. And when I know I have to write a script, I hate it. I hate the blank page, but I love writing fade out still.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What advice or guidance have you been given that is so priceless that you need to pass it on to our audience?
I think it's years and years ago, one of the very first, when I was first Google how to write a screenplay, I did join the Screenwriting U. And one of the main things that he taught us is celebrate your fellow writers, talk them up. When they get a win, talk them up, post about it, share about it, spread the news for them. And again, that needs to come from an authentic place. If it's something that doesn't resonate with you, don't have to share it. But if you've got connections to your people in your Thursday group, they need to be talking each other up. They need to be promoting each other. And I think people get so scared. There's only 5 movies getting made this year. And if they make hers, they're not going to make mine. That's scarcity mindset. And that's just self-sabotage. So talk each other up. That's one of the pieces of advice that has really impacted my career, honestly. It's that people remember how you make them feel. And I made them feel special and seen and that. And so then when it comes time for one of my things, they're much more likely to not just promote, be an authentic fan. So I think that's a piece of advice that you don't get very often that I think is really important. And then the other thing, put yourself in that box. Find the one genre that if that's the only thing you could write for the rest of your life, you'd be happy doing that. Write the hell out of that script for that genre and let that be your calling card and be known as that. So then you do have your personal tagline because you get put in a box as that writer, or you put yourself in that box. Doesn't mean you're going to be there for the rest of your life. I could write a really great horse and girl story. And if it was done well and it had characters that mattered and it had a hook that my manager could get behind, he'd shop it. Just because I am his horror with heart writer doesn't mean he's not going to get behind something else that I write. I have that tagline because I have that label. He then can go and shop me around so much easier. So put yourself in that box, find that box, figure out what that box is for you, and then even niche it down farther, right? I write horror. No, I don't just write horror. Everybody can write horror. I write horror with heart. You write horse and girl stories with blind characters or whatever it is, like niche it down so that when the director that you met at the film festival 5 years ago runs into somebody who's like, I'd really like to write a story about a blind horse rider, they'd be like, I know the perfect writer for you.
I would piggyback on that advice of talking other people up. You should also talk up actors who are in short films.
Oh, absolutely.
Because actors are out there looking for writers too, and directors. And talk up directors. Look at the filmmakers, the team, the editor. And I would say my thing would be to talk especially about other women, because that's my focus is on getting other women to work. Talk about the work that other women are doing in this business. We all need a shot in the arm. You, as successful as you are, you need to hear what a great job you're doing and how inspiring you are. And you are very inspiring to all of us. To me, I follow your journey all the time, and I'm always in awe and a little bit of jealousy.
Thank you.
Like, wow, good for her. She's done it again. When I heard about the game being turned into a film, I was so psyched for you. It's so amazing. But I think that's such a great point to talk about other people, because it is a business where we can just be so inwardly focused on the challenges, because there are so many challenges, and it is lonely, especially when you're a writer. Lonely, you're isolated, and there's challenges of getting your name out there and getting your work out there and getting yourself out there. That's all a challenge. It makes it a little bit easier when you are connecting with other people who are facing the same challenges and lifting them up.
Yep, absolutely. And actually that brings up one more thing, one more piece of advice that I would give, I think that has been extremely impactful for me, is don't get wrapped up in the doom and gloom. Everybody's going to be talking about Hollywood's exploding, movies aren't getting made, nobody buys, la la la. If you can't isolate it out of your brain, stay away from those groups or those people. You don't need that kind of toxicity in your life. Don't get caught up in the scarcity and the fear and the what ifs. Your job is to write and connect so that you can get people to read your writing. Focusing on or even paying attention to in any way, the doom and gloom of the industry is not going to serve you.
Yeah.
In any way. In any way. It's tricky because for some reason humans tend to connect through misery a lot of times, right? And so we went, oh, woe is me, or oh God, it's such a thing. And we're like, yeah, that's so hard. And everybody, I promise you that all that's going to do is steal your joy, make it that much harder to keep going, and it's not going to inspire you in any way.
Yeah, the only thing you can control is on the page or standing behind the camera and hiring. That's all you can control is what you're going to create. You can't control what's going to happen with what you create.
Exactly.
So yeah, I agree with that 100%. Do you know of any opportunities that our audience should be on the lookout for?
This is going to be an off the cuff one. that probably most people aren't going to think about. There is a screenwriting contest. I am in general not a contest fan. In your first couple of years, enter them because it's a kind of a good way to be like getting comfortable sending your stuff out, getting comfortable with letting other people read your stuff. After those first, say, 3 or 4 years, you're just wasting your money. That's my personal opinion. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me and I will explain to you why. But there is a few that I think have advantages beyond what the prize money or whatever the prizes are as far as getting produced or whatever. One is called the NYC Short Script Contest. And the reason I love this one, it's super affordable to enter. And you get prompts. So you have 72 hours to write a short script. I think it's 5 pages or 10 pages. And they give you the character and the location and the genre. And you only get, you find that out as the clock starts, right? So you have to quickly come up with an idea. And the reason I like this one so much is it gets you really comfortable with writing on a deadline and not being precious about your stories, right? So you're like, oh crap, I don't know how to, the very first thriller I ever wrote was for that contest and I actually ended up selling that script and it got made.
Are you talking about the NYC Midnight?
Yes, the Midnight. Thank you. I just love that one. And I think, and you get used to writing quickly and you get used to not being precious about it. I think there's so much to be learned from that one. I think that's a really great resource that anybody could take advantage of for sure.
That's really cool. Tracee, what is the big goal that you're working towards right now?
Besides being on set for that shark movie,
Yeah,
like dreaming of for years and years.
But again, that's kind of out of your control though, right?
Yeah, that's been a great lesson on letting go attachment and manifesting and all that. I just adapted a novel for a producer and it's out to directors right now. So super excited about that one. I know there'll be rewrites that come on when the director comes in, keeping my fingers crossed for that. And then I'm working on the first draft of a new, really unsettling, sexy thriller. My manager's been trying to get me to write a sexy thriller for literally years because Hollywood seems to want them all the time. And I'm like, I want death and I want blood and I want, like, I don't want, ew, sex and relationships. No, thank you. But somehow, finally, without trying or forcing it, I landed on this concept and I absolutely love it. And I'm having so much fun writing it. So I'm excited to get that one done and get that up to market.
Okay, tell us how we, Pam and I, and how our audience can help you, because this has been so helpful. And I know that this is going to be a great episode and people are going to get a lot out of it. So how can we all help you? What can we do to help you?
That's amazing. I guess be on the lookout for any things that I publish on Amazon. And I've got the No Excuses Write Anyway workbook that's been out for a few years. And then I'm working on the Pitch Your Heart Out book. So look for that one. I'm excited about that. And then go watch The Mortuary Assistant, please, because they are definitely talking about a sequel. And so it'd be super cool to get to come back to work on that one. And so if everybody goes and watches, that'll keep it up.
Is that in the theaters?
No, it's out of the theater, just left theaters. And now it's available on pretty much any of the streaming platforms. Shudder, Prime, AMC Plus, I think is where you can find it.
Tracee, can you plug your socials and people will follow you?
Basically, it's just Tracee Bebee on everything. It's just at Tracee Bebee with all the E's.
On everything, LinkedIn, Facebook.
I'm on LinkedIn, but I won't check it. If you want to send me a message, Instagram's the best way to get a hold of me. Instagram is where I tend to post most of my things. And then on Facebook, I do have a group that I'm kind of trying to build. So if people are interested in this kind of content, they can reach out to me and see if it would be a good fit for them.
Absolutely. Tracee, thank you so much. This was so much fun and really inspirational. So thank you for joining us on Slated Women Filmmakers. If today's conversation inspired you, resonated with you, or gave you a new tool for your journey, please share the episode with a fellow filmmaker. That's how our sisterhood can grow. And if you'd like to stay tuned to Slated Women Filmmakers, follow us on all of our social platforms. Thanks a lot.